Bitcoin, man. Game freaking over. Bitcoin is looking bad and it could get worse. But how much worse could it be getting? Well, that's what we'll investigate in this video, looking at some of the technicals and also just what the heck is going on. We're getting all of this bullish news. In fact, I've got more bullish news to share with you today, and yet the price of Bitcoin keeps on faltering. So we're going to investigate all of that in this video. My name's Lark. Every day I make videos talking about cryptocurrency investing. So if that is a topic that you would like to learn some more about, well, then subscribe to the channel. Click on the notification bell, know about a new video. And of course, click on that thumbs up button for the YouTube algorithm. So let's go ahead and get into the charts. Okay, so having a look at the charts here, this is the daily for Bitcoin. We have now broken that trend line, so that uptrend, that is over. Let's just take that off of our chart here. I even put a sad face on the chart so you can have a nice, easy way to interpret the information that we're looking at here. Bitcoin got down to around $32,300 today. Not looking super awesome, to be honest. This is our impending death cross, which at the current price action is likely to confirm within the next 10 days or so. Look, a death cross is a lagging indicator. You tend to see these when the market action is already looking pretty gosh darn crap. So that's kind of what we're seeing right now. If we do get a death cross, well, that's not a very good signal for the market. In order to avoid getting that death cross situation, we actually need Bitcoin to recover basically by about $10,000. We need to see Bitcoin closing over $42,000 to, I think, successfully reverse here and fend off that death cross. I don't think that's a likely scenario to happen in the coming days. Even if we don't go lower immediately, we're probably going to struggle. We'll bounce back up and move around a little bit here, but I don't see any grand recovery coming. We just had a massive raft of incredible news for Bitcoin, and to celebrate, Bitcoin is dumping in price. So fundamentals are rolling through better than ever, etc., and yet the price is going down. So even all of this good news couldn't save the price of Bitcoin, which is obviously not awesome. So let's keep an eye on this. Obviously, it hasn't confirmed yet. It may not confirm the death cross, but that is definitely what we're keeping our eyes on right now in terms of the technicals. Now, is all of this something super, super shocking? Well, we did have a very solid Bitcoin Wyckoff distribution phase play out. That's what has brought the price down so far. What we are probably looking at right now is a Wyckoff accumulation phase currently playing out. So we've had our big selling climax. So it was the big sell-off. Initially, we had our rally back up. Now we are having our secondary sell-off. So after the first initial price rally back up, we start seeing a bit of chop action coming through. You can see that's kind of what we got here. We had our big sell-off, came back up, selling off again, coming back down for those secondary tests here. So what we could be looking at is Bitcoin ranging sideways, potentially even for a few weeks. So just to be clear, when that death cross happens for Bitcoin, that doesn't mean like, okay, the death cross happens and then the next day the price drops by 50%. It's just showing that, yeah, the bears are in charge of the market. We are in a pretty rough place price-wise. Of course, it all depends on your point of view. It's always great to load up more Bitcoin on the cheap, but it's also a pretty tough period for the market because let's keep it real. Everybody wants the market to be green, to be happy. Everybody is in a much better mood when the prices are going up, the markets are pumping. When we see the markets dumping like this, most people are in a pretty grim state of mind. Now, the one thing that I do want to point out here, which is why I titled this video, Bitcoin's looking bad, it could get worse, is that if we are following this Wyckoff pattern, which, look, this is how big money plays the game. This is how the big money investors, the institutions, the hedge funds, all these guys, these are the patterns that we start seeing playing out as the institutionalization of Bitcoin picks up steam. And we have seen these institutional players big time into the market. We've seen them buying low. We've seen them selling high. We're going to see them reaccumulating at these prices and, of course, selling later on. So if the Wyckoff comp man, the market manipulators, if they are indeed playing out this pattern, then we could actually see that spring situation happen where we are potentially going to see Bitcoin going to its lowest price in this accumulation phase before, of course, pushing higher, going into recovery, and going on to make new highs. Now, you'll notice that's not some dramatic dump here. So what we could be seeing is sideways action for a couple of weeks here, that death cross coming in, and then potentially, as an example, I'm not saying this is when it's going to happen, but as an example, sometime around the start of July, for example, we see the spring come in. So that actually brings Bitcoin back down potentially to $28,000, $29,000 before bringing us back up. So it's not a dramatic dump. We right now have people who are calling for Bitcoin to go back to $10,000. We have people saying that it's all over. Bitcoin's going to go to zero. Those people tend to be overly optimistic at the top and overly pessimistic at the bottom or near the bottom. I know some people are out there like, why don't we just swing trade this? If the price is going to go lower, surely I should sell now and then buy lower. Well, let me just tell you this. Here's the deal for you. If you are swing trading the market and you're trying to do it now, you're too late, most likely. And you can, of course, make your own decisions on what you're going to do with your own investments. But if you were going to swing trade the market, the time to have done that would have been at $50,000 or $60,000. That's when you would sell on the anticipation that the market's going to roll over. Selling now, so if you bought it $50,000 or $60,000, you're still holding your Bitcoin and you're planning on selling now with the anticipation of buying when it goes lower, let me just tell you this, your risk reward for that sucks. Because in all likelihood, we're not going to dump by another 50%. And look, I'm not an oracle. Maybe we do dump by 50%. I mean, the market's not looking super awesome right now, but if we are going to say that, well, we had a Wyckoff distribution pattern play out, which we did, then perhaps we're going to have this Wyckoff accumulation pattern playing out. And if that's the case, well, our spring is not likely to be at $20,000 or $15,000 or $10,000. It's more likely to be at like $28,000. So just slightly lower than the initial selling climax. So that is, in an emotional sense, we see people getting this glimmer of hope, rejected, glimmer of hope, rejected, glimmer of hope, rejected, glimmer of hope, rejected, comes down here, and people who had probably been holding on for quite a while are finally going to get shaken out. They just can't take it anymore. They're giving up, moving on, cutting their losses, et cetera, et cetera. So we see a bunch of people selling here. Obviously, the institutions, the whales, all those guys who have played this game with your investments come in and buy it up, and then they pump the market up as you watch Bitcoin go on to reach new highs with the bitter realization that you sold the freaking bottom of this particular market cycle. So something for you to keep in mind as we are going forward here, moving into the markets. I mean, the fear is very real right now in the markets. We're down to 13 again on the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, which obviously shows that people are freaking the frick out. Reminds me of this meme from Aliens. Great movie, by the way. But that's it. People are out there saying it's over. Game over, man. Game over. And then, of course, we all get eaten by aliens. But, not a perfect analogy, but you guys get the point, right? So, look, this is what happens in markets. We have these massive fear events, and people tend to become overly bearish near the lower points of a market cycle, and they tend to become overly bullish at the upper points of a market cycle. You got to zoom out here. You have to take that long-term perspective on these investments. By the way, if you want to be earning some safe and simple passive income during all of this market volatility, then I can recommend to check out BlockFi, especially if you're a beginner. If you're a more advanced user, you can find better rates of return out there on some of these decentralized finance products. But if you're a beginner and you're trying to figure all this stuff out, but you do want to get some passive income, BlockFi is a great option for you. You can earn 5% on your Bitcoin, 4.5% on your Ethereum, 8.6% on your USDC dollar stablecoins, and they even are offering a credit card so you can actually get Bitcoin back rewards. And if you get that credit card, it will also boost your stablecoin earnings. So definitely check that out. And also, as a further bonus, you can get up to $250 in free Bitcoin by using the link down in the description to start your account. So go ahead and check that out if you do want to start earning some safe and simple passive income. Now, let's talk about some good news happening in Bitcoin land, even if it is not doing anything for the freaking price. So MicroStrategy has announced a $400 million note that they're going to be issuing out with the intention of buying more Bitcoin. I have to say this, Michael Saylor's board, man, they really, really are on board with this and trust him because they have raised so much debt for the company to buy more Bitcoin. It's absolutely freaking crazy. Of course, this $400 million purchase will put MicroStrategy over 100,000 Bitcoin. Now look, Square and Tesla, they're still holding their Bitcoin. A lot of the big institutional players are still holding their Bitcoin, although we have had some different institutions selling. Ruffer, for example, they're a British fund. They have sold all of their Bitcoin now. They made $1.1 billion in profit from doing so. So obviously they did very well with their Bitcoin play. But MicroStrategy come in to try to single-handedly save the market again, and yet this announcement from MicroStrategy was not enough to save the price of Bitcoin, unfortunately. But as I mentioned on Twitter earlier, I personally think it's very nice of us to dip the market down to allow Michael Saylor to get a better entry on his pending $400 million Bitcoin purchase. I'm sure he appreciates it as well. Now, we also got a lot of interesting news over the last 24 hours. So yesterday I covered the El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. Obviously that bill still needs to pass through the branches of government, but the president is introducing that into government this week. So, fingers crossed we do see that pass. But in light of that announcement, we actually saw a whole bunch of different legislators across South America and Central America announcing their Bitcoin interest, at least. So we've seen two members of Brazil's legislative branch putting on the Bitcoin laser eyes on social media. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but it does potentially mean that they could be having conversations about Bitcoin within the Brazilian parliament. We'll see what that turns out to be. We also see in Panama, they are talking about it as well. So Panamanian congressman has said that Panama should do the same as El Salvador has done. Whether or not we actually see that enacted into reality is a different thing, but the fact that they're talking about it is a good thing. Panama is a perfect freaking candidate for adoption of Bitcoin because in exactly the same way as El Salvador, Panama is using the freaking US dollar as legal tender. So why not adopt Bitcoin as legal tender? Because, when they're using the US dollar, they don't have any representation for that monetary policy that drives the dollar. So if, US politicians decide to inflate the currency or do whatever they want with it, Panama doesn't have any say over that. So bringing in Bitcoin as legal tender in Panama, that would be a massive, massive move. It would be the right direction, in all honesty, for the country to move in because Bitcoin is dependable mathematics. You can count on Bitcoin, and it has reached the level, in all honesty, in terms of network security, where it can safely be a country's legal tender. So very, very cool. I hope that Panama obviously gets on board. We also saw El Salvador's announcement inspiring Paraguay to also get on board or to talk about getting on board. So Carlitos Rejela, he said that Paraguay is working on a very important project to innovate Bitcoin in Paraguay. So that's very, very interesting, very exciting. Obviously, Paraguay, another great country that could really benefit from Bitcoin adoption. Also, it's a hydroelectric powerhouse in terms of it's got the Itapu dam, which it shares with Brazil, but it's a massive, massive renewable powerhouse. There's so much energy made from that. There was actually a few years ago, someone who was planning, this was at the end of the previous bull market, there was someone who's planning on making the world's biggest Bitcoin mine next to the Paraguayan side of the dam. Now, that didn't come to a reality, but maybe it'll come to a reality now. Or perhaps the Paraguayans are considering, in the same way El Salvador did, to potentially look at making Bitcoin into a legal tender for the country. And it would actually be really, really interesting to see them have a government level massive Bitcoin mine and then use the Bitcoin that they mine to spread around the country, to give it to people, or to, introduce it into the economy to actually become a Bitcoin economy. Very, very, very interesting. So we'll see what turns up with this. We don't have any real details on it yet, but I'm just excited that the El Salvador story has instantly inspired politicians all over Central and South America to start taking notice and to start saying, hey, actually, this is something that we could be looking at. If El Salvador is going to do it, well, why the heck can't we do it? So very, very cool to see. Anyway, those are my 2 Satoshis for the day. Your question: do you think that we are going to get a lower price for Bitcoin? Are we going to go down to the upper 20,000 region? What is your prediction for the lowest price that we're going to see before we start seeing that recovery? Do you think the Wyckoff accumulation pattern is going to be playing out and that we're going to see that spring phase coming in the next few weeks for Bitcoin? Let me know down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching today's video, and peace out till next time.